Here we go. It's Major Label Debut. This is the podcast about major label debuts. I'm Graham Wright. When I was a kid, sometimes they'd show a video in class and they'd wheel in a big cart with the television on it, and it was great at the beginning of class when that thing came in, because you knew that instead of doing like school that day, you were going to get to watch at least an educational video. And sometimes they'd show a Hollywood picture for some sort of flimsily conceived educational reason. Anyway, all of which goes to say, I am rolling in the AV cart now, because it's time for the second edition of the Major Label Debut Movie Club. That's right. Once again, our friend Bret Berg of the Museum of Home Video is joining us to discuss not one, not two, not three. No, wait, yes, three. Not one, not two, but three. Well, now it's very disappointing. Anyway, just go along with it. Adjust your expectations. 3 entire feature films. Actually, not 3 entire feature films. The point is, it's 3 edited feature films. Bret has cut these 3 films down to their barest essentials as part of his Fasterpiece Theater series. And this is all happening. It's streaming on the Museum of Home Video's website, museumofhomevideo.com, tomorrow night. And by tomorrow night, I specifically mean May 19th, 2026. So I hope that you're listening to this podcast right when it comes out, and so that you can catch the stream. Bret has cut down One Trick Pony, a 1980 movie starring Paul Simon, Give My Regards to Broad Street, a 1984 movie starring Paul McCartney, and Hearts of Fire, a 1987 movie starring Bob Dylan. He calls it Boomer Rats in the 80s, and it certainly is. These are obviously 3 men who have distinguished themselves as musicians many times over, who will live forever through their songs. However, perhaps not through their screen performances, at least not through these 3 screen performances, which are all very interesting and very illuminating about the men inhabiting them, or attempting to inhabit them. Bret, in his brilliant edits, has really shown these films, and in a way it seems these characters, for exactly what and who they are. And it was hilarious and edifying to watch them. And it was insane to talk about them with not just Bret Berg, but Major Label Debut producer John Paul Bullock as well. Pretty feverish conversation about, frankly, a pretty feverish collection of movies. So listen to it now, and check out the stream tomorrow night at museumofhomevideo.com at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard, 7 Pacific. You do the math elsewhere. And here it is. This is the conversation. I don't know how to prepare you for it. I certainly wasn't prepared for it myself. And so buckle up. All right. So Bret Berg is here, of the Museum of Home Video, and most specifically Fasterpiece Theater, to discuss not 1, not 2, but a full tic-tac-toe of boomer musician vanity extravaganza, a trio of megalopoli, as you described it right before we started rolling. We got pictures today from Paul McCartney, from Paul Simon, from Bob Dylan, all starring, all in various seeming creative driver's seats. We'll get into some of the production minutia as we go. But to start with, Bret, I guess my question is, what possessed you to tackle all of these movies? And I understand there was even a 4th that you elected to not work on.
There was actually 5.
Oh my God.
But one of them was just too good of a movie, and one of them was tonally atrocious. The one that was too good was Songwriter by Alan Rudolph with Christopherson and Willie Nelson. And I hit play on it. It was just too good. I was like, I don't want to cut any of this, so we're going to omit that. And then Running Out of Luck with Mick Jagger, also from the same 80s period. But it's kind of gross because the plot involves him being in white slavery in Brazil. He is sold off into servitude on a plantation, and I'm like, I don't want to air this, so we have not cut it up. But I guess it was seeing a still image of Dylan in Hearts of Fire on like someone referencing it on Letterboxd or something, and I remembered, oh right, Bob Dylan starred in an 80s movie. Was that any good? And then I looked into it and I went, oh my God, they all have, all those boomer rats all have these mid-period biopics or autobiopics. It's just fucking fascinating. There was a wave of them. You know, it's just boomer exploitation, I think.
And it's amazing how, to me, I wasn't around for any of these. The last one came out the year I was born. And they obviously made very little impact, maybe even at the time. And so I was completely unaware of all of these movies. I didn't even know Give My Regards to Broad Street had a film component. I thought it was just an unloved McCartney record. And, you know, now these guys are all carefully managed legacy projects with, you know, Paul McCartney's churning out self-aggrandizing documentaries, of which I watch every second and cry and cheer and celebrate I Love Paul. But these movies are not getting Disney Plus remaster documentary white glove treatment. And it's fascinating to see these people in the midst of this sort of moment of like dawning obsolescence, trying to rage against the dying of their youth or career or relevance or whatever it is in three pretty different ways, although also pretty similar in some key respects.
They're all similar in that they're all shit. None of the three really connect on an audience level, which is fascinating because all three of these guys are mass media personalities used to connecting on a personal, emotional level with people. So that is the key element that's missing with all three, is the audience component. And I don't know what it is. It might have just been the weed was just getting a little too strong, or the coke took over from the weed, or who knows? I mean, it also happened with Cheech and Chong. They went on a similar trajectory. I guess it's coke. It's just got to be coke, right?
That's often the 80s, demon.
I don't know. They got too complacent. They got too rich, and too much of a celebrity. They're not around normal people anymore.
And they hadn't been for some time, and all of them were decade plus into careers that were marked by, impossible highs and so much adulation and so much success in every respect. And having had just a little bit of adulation and just a little bit of success for just a little bit of time, I know how even that is so intoxicating, and it makes you feel like you can do any creative work. Like you watch a movie and you think to yourself, yeah, I should be able to make a movie. I know what it is to make a thing. I can just step into any arena and execute my vision, with success, and everyone's going to love it. And then that combined with the fact once it starts to go away, you really want to cling on to it. And, as you were saying, these movies all sort of happened in moments like that. I guess, should we start talking about the first movie? And maybe, Brett, you could tee up One Trick Pony from 1980.
This is Paul Simon not playing Paul Simon. He's playing a fictional character, Jonah, I think his name was.
Jonah Levin.
He seems to have had a lesser career than the real Paul Simon. Like the character is more of struggling singer-songwriter who never achieved big fame. And it's about his grinding out tours, which actually seemed like the most pleasant part of his life. So I don't know what he's complaining about. And his shitty divorced, like creepazoid life back in New York. There's one moment in the film where he shows like how grody he is as a terrible man. And he doesn't quite realize how he's coming off, or maybe he's trying to atone for having been that person. I don't know. Very weird. This is Paul Simon's attempt to also be kind of like a Larry David type, where all these things are happening around him and he's just reacting to them. Very weird.
There's a scene in the movie and in your edit that to me sort of like felt like the central thesis of the movie, where he's trying to play some new songs for the record company executive who's played by Rip Torn. and is just, every time he sort of gets halfway through a verse, someone comes in or the phone rings or something. They just stop him to give him some shitty advice. And he's sort of like, he's like the last honest man in the center of this hurricane of like phony corporate bullshit, which is also a very classic musician gripe, even when they're as successful as Paul Simon.
Yeah, especially for someone who had kind of slipped into corporate bullshit world. You don't get to make a movie about yourself unless you're in the corporate world. Like the modern equivalent, I guess, is the Charlie XCX movie came out recently, which should end up on this show in 15 years.
Well, we just did a Record Club episode about the soundtrack album she did for Wuthering Heights. And yes, I absolutely. The thing that's really interesting to me about all three of these movies, but really more so with this one than the other two, is how self-serious it is and how a lot of Paul Simon's music is already this kind of toxic nostalgia quality to it, but it does. This movie was directed by this guy Robert Young, right? Who he won a Peabody for a 1960s civil rights documentary, and he had a Guggenheim and was kind of viewed as a academic filmmaker, and he made a bunch of these serious, in quotes, movies that in the 80s and 90s, including one that Graham and I were talking about as we were doing research that was starring Maria Bello called China the Panda Adventure, that sounds like a Troy McClure joke. It's what is this? But he did a competent job, but of making a film, the movie hangs together. It just has this kind of really, all three of these men, I think, just truly didn't understand how negative they were coming off. I think they thought they were being actors and making dramatic performance choices, but really they just seem like kind of really shitty human beings. And particularly since this script was written by Paul Simon, I just, the screenplay is glacial and bad, has all these really bad moments in it. I was in your edit, that walking through there's this endlessly long sequence of him walking through the airport that culminates with an interaction with what's his name? It's
Daniel Stern.
Daniel Stern playing a Hare Krishna, and he has this awful Harry Chapin Hare Krishna joke, and then 5 minutes later, there's a scene where Paul Simon is in a bathtub, and one of the guys in his band comes in who's African American, and there's a dick joke, which is funny because this movie takes place in this trench before Paul Simon adopts this, what is viewed now as, and should have been viewed at the time as deeply problematic relationship with black music, particularly the Graceland and Rhythm of the Saints. It's I just picture him sitting at his desk with a word processor, writing this script and laughing at this dick joke and the Hare Krishna, Harry Chapin thing. And it's just everything about it seems so vain and strange and it's so bitter too. He benefited from incredible fortune, obviously extraordinarily talented songwriter and performer, but he's among the luckiest people to have ever lived in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
And then to make it be about my life sucks because, and it's really interesting too. One thing I think that a lens that I was modern viewers, I'm not sure will understand at all the genre war thing that's going on where it's look, I like Paul Simon. I grew up liking Paul Simon, but I will take the B-52s over Paul Simon any day of the week. And they're presented in this kind of dismissive way where, they're performing Rock Lobster or whatever it is in a great early B-52 song and dancing their hearts out and singing, and there's all this stuff going on. And then he's got these this record for him is one of his tertiary albums, right? It has Late in the Evening is the hit, right? And then there's another Ace in the Hole, which is I think not a very great single, but those were the two singles from the One Trick Pony album, right?
Okay. All right. So maybe I'm going to reverse engineer this. Maybe this movie came about, it's a theory, because he was releasing this album, and this is a quickie, and this was written in like a weekend and filmed immediately after they came up with the idea to get it into theaters around the time of the release of the record.
It's possible.
It does have like a sort of a casual quality to it. And like you said, John Paul, the long airport beginning, and they're riding in the van, reading a whole review out loud. And there's sort of like a shaggy, slow pace throughout the film that was evident even in its Fasterpiece version.
Yeah. He probably, Paul Simon probably said, okay, I'm going to make an Altman movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to make 5 easy pieces, and I'm going to be a dick to every. I mean, like, it is that thing where I do think it's so funny because I was listening to some of the songs, like there's that song "God Bless the Absentee," where the line that you smartly included in your edit. So many great moments in your edit. By the way, the "How Long You've Been Divorced" hard cut is one of my. I just laughed out loud, like. The first time I saw it so hard. But there's this line that's like, my son don't need me yet, his bones are soft. And it's like, oh, this is peak boomer. Oh, just everything about it's so gross, especially the don't, like I'm, and Late in the Evening also has that, like, I'm talking in slang. Like I've got this just like, oh, and it's like whatever it is, a 45-year-old man who's, the thing is he's just such an unlikable character. He's verbally abusive to his wife. He like weirdly pokes her and then hits the cereal box. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny too, because like, I think all these movies that have more impact than maybe I had realized at the time. I kept thinking about Inside Llewyn Davis the entire time we were watching this, where I was like, oh, this is similar structure. It's like a musician who's had a early success, whose then career is fading, and they're driving around the country trying to keep things together. And they have these, especially the sitting down performing scene that Graham brought up earlier about where he keeps getting interrupted. There's a version of that in the Llewyn Davis movie where he finally gets to the club in Chicago. He performs for the guy, and then he's dismissed, or he performs for his dad in the hospital when he's dying. I don't know if you remember, but yeah. And I think it has big tonal problems too. Like that, you're watching him perform that song "Soft Parachutes." That's the kind of like anti-war thing, and it's like, is this supposed to be funny or bad, or
is it like "Coming Home in a Body Bag"? The song,
I mean, it's sort of like, but it has this just really bitter, selfish quality to it. Graham warned me before. He was like, do not go on a rant about Fleetwood Mac rumors, which I will, but I'll save it for later. But this is to me like all part of this kind of hyper selfish boomer nonsense that, like, I don't know. I mean, it's weird.
Again, cocaine.
Yes, for sure.
Let's not forget that One Trick Pony, Paul Simon, that's the same time he was going out with Carrie Fisher. So
nice. Good for him.
Going on in his home life as he's creating the movie One Trick Pony.
Bret, what's your relationship like with boomer culture, boomer film culture, maybe most specifically? And like, because you referred right from the beginning, you referred to these as like the boomer rat movies. And I know as a mid-millennial, I've always found that guys like you who are like just a bit older than me have a lot more of a chip on their shoulder about boomer culture generally, and Paul Simon specifically. A friend of the show, Rob Schnaff, also has yelled at me about Paul Simon a lot. And so I'm just curious to hear what you were going into these movies with pre-existing expectation-wise.
Memories of these records on cassette in my parents' cars.
Mm-hmm.
My dad having the fucking Gypsy Kings Bombaleo on repeat in his car, and Graceland. I would say that was it. And my parents weren't like music fans necessarily, but they had Graceland and it got played somewhat often.
I mean, it's full of jams, right? I mean, it's like, it's great song after great song after great song on Graceland.
Yeah, it's just today it's complicated, but it is still a good record.
Well, he appropriated those musicians' work because it's so fucking good. And it remains extremely excellent on the record, even if the politics around it are less clear-cut.
I mean, also in the intervening years since I was a child, I've also heard the story about how he stole the whole premise of the album from a singer-songwriter that he was mentoring in some capacity. So that's like just as bad as whatever, as like not paying African musicians or whatever. I think. Anyways, it's all a big mess, and Paul Simon is a total crybaby. And it's really funny how in this same year, 1980, Art Garfunkel starred in a much better movie that's more of like a real art house movie, Timing by Nick Rogue.
Amazing.
So, and he's giving like a real movie performance, and it's kind of leaving Paul in the dust. And I'm sure that had something to do with why One Trick Pony happened also. He's like, fuck, Art gets to do that. I'm going to do that too. And it turned out to be a total narcissistic collapse.
It's so amazing for someone who's in that position of such power to gravitate to casting himself as, you know, a less successful, less powerful, you know, would-be hangdog, underdog. It's hard to know, especially because I've never seen the full version of this or any of these movies we're talking about.
That's for the best.
Yeah, it felt that way. I gotta say, I liked One Trick Pony, I think, a lot better than both of you did, because it was the only one that I left sort of feeling like, oh, you know, this I could sit down and watch the whole movie of, even though everything we're talking about with the behind the scenes of it and the Paul Simon of it is true. You know, I love Llewyn Davis, and it's certainly not as good as Llewyn Davis, but that idea of like a self-defeatingly embittered, you know, victim complex toting asshole artist who's using the mechanism of like artistic integrity to rage against everyone around him for sort of like keeping him down and like, you know, being this hollow, phony system, and he's, as I said, the last honest man. I think that's, I've met a lot of people like that in the music industry. I have felt those feelings myself sometimes, especially as my hold on like relevance and success became more tenuous. It's really easy to attribute that to the fact that the industry is only interested in phony TikTok artists who hired Chaotic Good to do viral marketing campaigns for them. And if the world was pure, Graham Wright would be on the top of the heap. That's a really alluring story to tell yourself, whether you're Paul Simon or Graham Wright. And I thought that, you know, that was a meaty stew for dramatization. Also, my last point, I thought Paul Simon's performance, well, not terribly actorly, was more than Dylan and McCartney sort of in tune with the tone of the movie around him. And like the whole thing felt consistent, and his interactions with his band in particular, I thought were pretty like organic, and they felt like, not surprisingly maybe, because that's the one part of the movie that he did live, was going around with guys in a band. But this was the one that I can honestly say I enjoyed.
Well, I was going to say to that, Lou Reed does a surprisingly good job as like a kind of
the sleazebag record executive. Yeah.
Totally good. And I was like, oh, he should have done more acting. And, you know, I think Rip Torn is miscast. I think that so is Blair Brown. I don't believe any of the attraction, or that these people could have been married. I mean, no way she marries that guy in that was weird. Joan Hackett is so incredibly beautiful, and that like the scene of them in the hotel room where she's like, take advice, you know, take this one from me as a gift kind of thing, is like, it's actually quite sad. And I thought that was kind of beautiful in its weird way. And there's like good little bits from Harry Shearer and the Daniel Stern thing we were talking about earlier. And then there's like cool music cameos. It's like Sam and Dave, although the Love and Spoonful thing, I felt kind of bad for them. I was like, oh, are they being relegated to this like revival, like that their career's over thing? And then Tiny Tim, I always like seeing Tiny Tim. He's just like a beautiful creature, weird angel that we have another episode that heavily references Tiny Tim. But I also kind of liked the ending of this movie too. Like it kind of works in a cinematic, shocking way where he just like, and also the most like peak Boomer vanity. Like he's like, I'm just going to wreck this thing because I don't like disco or whatever. It's like, okay. Like, you just fucked up a lot of people's money and life, and just because you're a selfish jerk. Look, there's so many moments in it. Like, when they're in Rip Torn's office and he's introducing him to Lou Reed, there's that oil painting or photograph of a woman's underpants. Like, it's like her just her like vagina area. And that's the cover of a Jorge Santana album, Carlos Santana's brother's first solo record. And I have it, and I was like, where's that picture from? And I went and dug it. I was like, oh, this is like a weird Santana. It was like an in joke, that there's a lot of that in this movie. A lot of the, which does feel also more thoughtful and pointed than I think the other two movies we're going to see, where there are plenty of cameos. There's plenty of, this just feels like it hung together better as a movie than the other two for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Bret, I noticed that a lot, from reading the Wikipedia, it seemed like a lot of stuff with the kid didn't really make your edit. Is that a standing rule in your editing suite, that we take out the kids as much as possible, or was that just are those the worst parts of the movie?
No, we just take out the boring parts, and
those parts are boring.
That particular part of this movie was boring because nothing is connecting emotionally. So my edit is about how vapid this whole exercise of the movie is, I suppose. And I don't know, the kids stuff just gets in the way.
I thought you did a spectacular job. I realized I'd seen this as a student, and a VHS or DVD copy of it, and I'd seen at least parts of Hearts of Fire before. I'd never seen Give My Regards to Broad Street, but going back through it, I was like, oh, like, you just boiled this down to its essentials. It's way more palatable, your version. Like you did with The Doors, it is a I'm very excited for people to watch this, your version of it, because it's like, oh, interesting. Like, you really do get a sense of all the problems with this movie and everything that's good about it. And it's, which, there's not that many things that are good about it, but there's a couple things that are good about it. And it's, you can consume it in less than like watching an episode of CSI, or so it's like at 46 minutes or something now, like 43, something like that. Late 38.
It must add difficulty cutting like around musical performances. I know you did that with the Doors one as well. I was wondering about that specifically. While I watched the Paul McCartney one, I was like, oh, you got to like also, they're playing the instruments in sync and everything. It seems like it would add complication.
There are times when I try to make a seamless edit where there is music and a beat, and the beat just continues uninterrupted. So it sounds like that's how it's supposed to sound, even though I'm drastically manipulating it. And then there's other times when I go full plunderphonics and make a jagged jump cut that calls attention to itself, usually to call out pomposity or banality. You were mentioning the edit, John Paul, about or was it Graham, the line cutting in the middle of the lyric about divorce to something else entirely. That's to draw attention to how banal something is, usually in my universe. And when it comes to the Beatles, everybody knows what the Beatles already sound like. So I feel extra licensed to fuck with Beatles stuff. There's one time where I cut down the 1990 Grammys. I don't know if I've sent either of you that edit. That one is one of my favorites.
I would love to see that
of Museum of Home Video, because it just makes so many contextual jab in the eye jokes about how all the silly music, basically. But what was I saying? The Beatles are endlessly fuck-withable because it's always funny. And there's something about Paul in particular which makes it extra funny to like,
well, this is
jump cut around in the music.
This is sensitive area for Graham Wright. So I'm very excited to get into this. Yeah.
Well, by way of introducing 1984's Give My Regards to Broad Street, I will just say that part of being a Paul McCartney lover, just like part of loving anyone, is loving the totality of that person. And Paul McCartney brings a lot of totality to love, and including a healthy dose of both pomposity and banality, which, Bret, I think you've really put your finger on sort of like the two most
present qualities in all three of these works, and indeed in many other such works by musicians. And I was so fascinated to watch Paul sort of seemingly try to get back in the Hard Day's Night help groove. You know, this is a guy who's been on screen in really similar ways before, and certainly to my, and I think many people's mind, much, much more successfully. And, you know, where those movies are so exciting and alive and vital, especially the first one, you know, this movie starts in a traffic jam. And although it cinematically leaves the traffic jam for most of it, it never really feels like it picks up that much more energy to me. And I thought it was cool contrasting like 84 solo McCartney vanity movie with 64 Beatles vanity movie, or whatever year Hard Day's Night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my memory, it's been a long time since I've seen A Hard Day's Night, but my memory is that Paul's the funniest, or like the most natural on camera at that time. And here he is phoning it the fuck in. He is the comedic genius of his 60s stuff on film is not present here. And that's the real missing piece. And also, it's not a movie. It's more of a commercial. And I have to think he saw Led Zeppelin's movie. The Song Remains the Same.
Song Remains the Same, yeah.
Like, I could do that. And then he just did it, or his botched version of it.
The premise of this movie, such as it is that Paul McCartney has just finished his new record, but they've entrusted the master tapes to, you know, a sort of potentially unreliable friend, staff member, hanger on, like classic Beatles employee who's just a guy they know.
Yeah, British man.
Yeah, and he's vanished with the tapes. And so while Paul McCartney promotes the record, they're also sort of, I won't say searching for the tapes. They're sort of hoping the tapes turn up and occasionally commenting on where the tapes may or may not be. And that's basically the plot of the film. We see Paul go from like interview to session to fantasy sequence to vehicle. What was that like cutting down? Bret, how do you enter into such a turgid? I never know how to pronounce it, but either way it applies.
Turgid.
Well, this is the shortest of the three edits. So that means that there was less material in it that I thought was funny or interesting. This movie was just not inspiring. It's just a real shame because the 80s was the height of pop cinema in a lot of ways. With, you know, in the same year, Beverly Hills Cop comes out, Ghostbusters comes out, Gremlins comes out. And I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting. So why is this movie so turgid? You know.
Well, it's also like the guy who directed it never worked again after this, really, it looks like. And you're kind of like, and then, you know, Paul McCartney is credited as the screenwriter, but like, these are both people who it seemed like Peter Webb, who made it, had made a short film that had been well regarded. And then McCartney or whoever producers, I don't know if it was George Martin. It seemed like George Martin was involved in a producer level capacity as well, but hired this guy probably because he would let McCartney do whatever he wanted. And what McCartney wanted to do was string together a series of performance moments that were kind of, you know, essentially re-recordings of Beatles songs and his own bigger hits from 10 years prior.
Oh, Purple Rain came out the same year.
Oh man, I mean that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, just in comparison to also how like wildly different that music is. Like it's nuts.
Well,
yeah, I mean
the arrangements of his past material in this film is also completely uninspiring.
Yeah, gross.
That they're tracking in the studio, that stretch of the movie, that shit's pathetic. What is that?
Oh man.
It really like validates, I know John Lennon was gone by the time this movie came out, but this movie like validates every mean thing
he just seems
John Lennon
depressed.
ever said about McCartney.
Was Linda dying at this time? When did she die?
It was like the 2000s or something, right?
Oh,
I mean, at this point, he was the richest of all three of these guys.
Yeah.
And I think it's just pure, what do I do now? What do I do? You know, he's having the biggest existential crisis because he never needs to work again. And he's like, well, I guess I just do my old stuff again now.
And he's such a consummate crowd pleaser. And it seems like he, especially by this point, didn't couldn't seem to find another way to be. And so this movie is stuck in this weird nowhere land where like everything about it seems theoretically designed to be entertaining and to play the hits, but nothing about it is entertaining, and nothing about it, as you like, it reminds you in a very bad way of how the hits used to be really fun to listen to, and right now they're like pretty depressing to hear.
What did y'all think about the Barbara Bach Ringo thing, where it was like the runner of the two of them together? It's funny, Brad, I don't know if you know this, but we had Dave Alvin on the show, and he talks about there's a January 1981 issue of Playboy magazine where John Lennon goes song by song through a number of Beatles hits and describes how he's like, we took this one piece from some 60s song and we made that the chorus, and then he's really talks about their songwriting process in a really interesting way. But also in that the playmate is Barbara Bach, and Barbara Bach ends up marrying Ringo Starr, and to see the two of them here, it creates a weird symmetry in Major Label Debut in our little cinematic universe, but also like just watching them kind of.
Well, it's their meet cute.
Yeah, it's like the two of them are like, all up on each other the entire time, which I thought was like kind of adorable, but also, again, I don't think any of these men understand how unlikable they come off. Even Ringo, Paul, and Paul Simon, everyone just seems like kind of a dick. All these guys are like kind of cold and removed, and
oh yeah, because they're all like fabulously wealthy, so their lives are boring.
Yeah,
they're boring and also completely fulfilled. The whole point of this film is that the tapes are missing. You got to find the tapes. The person who seems completely unconcerned is Paul, because to him it doesn't matter if they're found or not. He's still going to be fabulously rich and still be Paul McCartney, regardless if the record comes out or not. So
yeah, being driven around in a limousine, right?
Yeah. So that attitude seeps through the entire film.
I also wonder to what extent, and Paul McCartney certainly had experience being on sets and everything before, but the difference between being in a recording studio creating art or being on tour performing for people versus being on a film set making a film and being like, okay, walk out of the control room again, back to ones, even though I'm sure McCartney didn't have to do that many takes, it's just like a comparatively, in many ways, a much more tedious or at least laborious process. And I wonder how much of the like low energy we got from Paul Simon, from Paul McCartney, and I also felt from Bob Dylan, as we'll discuss presently, maybe for different reasons. How much of it just comes from the reality of, it's really fun to have a meeting about how you're going to make a movie, and then Paul McCartney gets to, spew ideas into a tape machine for 2 hours and then goes home while someone else writes it, or, I know he got the credit, but was he sitting there at the typewriter? But then you show up on set and you have to do the take and you have to act with the other actor and you have to eat the lunch, and, it might just be not as much fun as he thought it would be, especially not being.
Oh, right. Yeah,
anymore.
He got bored.
Yeah.
He got bored with it quickly, is what you're saying.
You might say. That would certainly explain certain tonal qualities to his performance.
Well, I mean, take, for example, the Silly Love Songs, Metropolis, like Bowie, Klaus Nomi, Broadway, Cats Broadway musical moment of it, where it's like, there's a real bitterness and anger, not only to like the new wave stuff, whatever that means, of like music that's happening at the time. And I said this to Graham earlier when we were doing research. I'm gonna say it again. But again, I'll take Bowie over any of this McCartney stuff at any time. But he's like clearly like angry about being passed by and re-recording music from before with, this kind of like, everything about it is this kind of bitter, curdled nostalgic quality to it. That's like, I don't know, man. I like, this movie also has good cameos. It's like Tracy Ullman is in it, George Martin is in it, John Paul Jones. There's like a kind of a who's who, again, of like, in Hearts of Fire, we'll see it in a minute, like British cool people from the early 80s. But I don't know, like it has this kind of, there's another gross through line of just, I guess you're 100% right, Brett. It's like boredom and wealth. And I don't know what Paul's history with substance abuse and stuff is. I gather it's probably not much, right? He probably had his act together more than the other guys in the band. Is that true?
He loved his weed though. So
yeah. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just very high and like kind of. There's a lot
Harrison
of scenes
Ford has had a wonderful laconic film career, so that's no excuse.
True. But Harrison Ford is like a sex object. Like, and speaking of, we're about to get to Return of the Jedi, but it's like Paul McCartney. I feel like 50% of the shots he's looking off screen. He's like in the back of a car, or in the scene where it's like the Jack the Ripper Victorian fantasy, where he's walking through the cobblestone streets and like there's an old crone who's like leering at him, and the prostitutes and the the whole thing. It's like sex workers on the corner. It's just, it just smacks of like separation from any kind of understanding of what basic human interaction is now and society. Like it's
but also we'll never know what it's like to be Paul McCartney. His detachment is a defense mechanism against every human on the planet knowing who he is. So.
True, and probably against his primary creative partner for most of his early part of his life.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's fun. It is that they're like, I kept thinking about Bret Easton Ellis, all three of these movies, and especially as we get to Hearts of Fire, I'm gonna like this. But there is that kind of like, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Defense, but this whole movie seems like a defense mechanism.
It's definitely, I guess it's a peek inside the mind of McCartney, and it's the pace at which he lives his life. Just drifting from one thing to the next. Everyone's kind of genteel and nice because they have to be, because he's like a billionaire, nothing is ever really a problem.
I also just thought it was really like symbolically interesting how he, like I said, he starts the movie in this traffic jam, miserable, and then as soon as the Beatles song kicks in for the first time, suddenly he's speeding through the streets in like a cool rocket car. And I don't know if anyone thought that much about the significance of that choice, but I thought it really said something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it says, but something.
Just nostalgia, a sadness that he's not 24 anymore and like doing the cool shit, even though what he's doing is incredibly cool. Although
incredibly cool.
His McCartney's new wave attempts, they're always a reaction to it. They're not fully embracing it. I love Temporary Secretary. It is a reaction to new wave rather than wholly embracing it. Also, what's his face did that too. Rick Wakeman, someone who could have leaned real hard into new wave and never really did. Did that song. It's kind of like Temporary Secretary. I'm forgetting what it's called. Same era.
One of the things as a McCartney fan that has frustrated me about him creatively over the years, and I'm sure I'm not alone, is just the way in which he seems to feel obligated or compelled to trend chase. Even now, even like his last, every record Paul McCartney releases could be the last Paul McCartney record. And the fact that he's hiring like Greg Kurstin or whoever the songwriter, producer of the moment is to make these records that are supposed to be contemporary. I mean, I guess the Kanye song was pretty cool, but generally speaking, I'd so much rather hear Paul McCartney off on some weird odyssey of artistic creation. I guess then he wouldn't be Paul McCartney though.
Graham, he just played 2 shows here in LA at the Fonda, Wild Underplays, and a friend of mine went to see it and said that he was so emotionally moved by it and this is a person who works in the music industry, was basically like, it's the single greatest concert I've ever seen. And it's a 900-year-old Paul McCartney, like, and So maybe he's
It's so well, and he like I went to see McCartney 10 years ago now in Toronto by myself on a last minute floor seat with a $20 beer in each hand, and he came out and started playing I think some Beatles song. I can't even remember now what it was, and I started crying, and I didn't stop crying for the entire night. And everyone in there was having that experience, and he wields that power. So no wonder he's so unusual and in so many surprise, like he's not like a weird kook at all. He's sort of, it's kind of like how Canadian hockey players are all personalityless robots because they get identified as elite athletes at the age of 2 and start getting media training so they never cause controversy. It just messes with your brain, man. To be the greatest. I should know.
Yeah. All right. So I've been waiting this whole time to say that in Hearts of Fire, Bob Dylan looks like a Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. He does not look good. It is a terrible way that they film him and put makeup on him and light him. And my God.
Could you give a quick intro on this film for the people, Brett? I feel like this one maybe is the lowest profile of anything we're talking about.
Yes. I don't think anyone on earth has seen Hearts of Fire from 1985. Around the time that I guess he was back in the boomer consciousness through Farm Aid.
Right.
Do I have that right? This is the same era?
It's 87, according to my records here, unless we're wrong. Okay. But anyway, same. That's, right. Time moves slower back then.
Well, in his career, he's crawling out of his Christian conversion period and approaching the Oh Mercy, Daniel Lanois, like recreation of his identity as an old blues man that basically exists to this point right now. But like, it'd be like, remember I made 5 Christian albums? Well, like I'm not that anymore. Now I'm like a guy who's, I mean, it's funny. Did you see the Springsteen Scott Cooper movie?
No. Was it?
They're incredible parallels between Hearts of Fire and this. And clearly the new Dylan is aware of this movie. And it does feel like it was like, what if we made Hearts of Fire, but we made it good? And then it was like, what if we just made Hearts of Fire again and it was also bad?
Could you give a quick capsule summary of what's going on in Hearts of Fire, Brett?
Yes. It's really the story of a young woman in a small town who has showbiz ambitions and becomes a popular singer-songwriter through the mentorship and utter disgusting just existence of this Dylan-esque faded 60s star. It's the same thing with One Trick Pony. He's playing a lower level of celebrity than his real life is. And it's a washed up guy who just shows up at a bar that she's playing at, and he goes, I like you, and then tries to romance her, and it's disgusting because he's like 100 years old, even though he's only 46 at the time they made this movie. I am older than Bob Dylan was in this movie, and he looks like a Skeksis. So he comes to town, he tutors her, he tries to fuck her, or does, I can't remember, and then he takes her to London, and she's creeped out by him. And then it's like a ping pong of her getting famous and him being resentful. And
there's sort of like a third party who's, I guess, sort of a rival / antagonist.
Oh, yes.
Who's played by Rupert Everett.
Yes, playing a
James Colt.
Playing a cross between Gary Newman and someone from like Duran Duran or ABC or one of those bands. Mm-hmm. And the movie opens with Rupert Everett doing a cover of Soft Cell's cover of Tainted Love.
And then immediately at the beginning, because she's working at a toll booth listening to it, and someone driving through says, it sucks. And then the rest of the movie, people keep saying it sucks. And it's very clear the movie's position on, what's his name? Gary Colt?
His name, the character's name is James Colt.
But also
it's another like Death Before Disco, like I hate new wave, whatever, like truly bizarre thing. I mean, this movie is a blatant ripoff of A Star Is Born, right? Like it's like a shitty, to the point too where they make a Streisand joke right in the beginning where it's like, Barbra Streisand. It's like, you're just doing A Star Is Born, that every 10 years there's A Star Is Born. This was the failed 80s version of it. And like in comparison to Christopherson and Streisand, like doing the same thing 10 years before. This thing is just like an unmitigated train wreck from start to finish. I mean, it's interesting. I definitely had seen either parts of this or maybe I'd watched pieces of it on YouTube or something at some point in time, but it had that woman, Fiona. I was like, oh, Fiona. I don't like, who is this? That's interesting. She's like, I totally get it. Like if she was an attempt at like Lady Gaga-ing her in this, you know, elevating her beyond being a pop singer into a movie star. She comes off fine in it, but it is just the presence of Dylan's ghoulish, he's just like a wraith that's sort of moving through scenes or on the periphery of stuff. And like, it's just truly, truly bizarre. I kept thinking about the Lost Boys because of that shirtless drummer. It's like the saxophone guy from the Lost Boys, where he's just a ripped dude who's like, and just endless shots of that. Like he's in that movie so much, and I don't know what the character's name was. Or like but I mean,
real baffling. And I guess it's because Bob Dylan on film only works in a limited context. He's a side figure in that Peckinpah movie, Peck Garrett, Billy the Kid, which he did.
Yep.
Now that's a good use of Dylan because he doesn't say much and he just shows up on the periphery every once in a while. So he took that approach, but he's the star of the movie. And then also, what's that other one? Masked and Anonymous. What the fuck is that?
Yes.
You know, that's up for discussion on a later major label debut. And then there's also that Ronaldo and Clara nightmare. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I know what it is. I've never seen
like
it.
A 5-hour version of this.
And he's so compelling in Don't Look Back, and even in Eat the Document. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the sort of like Don't Look Back sequel that he took from Penny Baker and edited himself into sort of like it's the one where him and John Lennon are in the limousine, super fucked up. That's kind of the notable footage in it. It's like it's impossible to watch. It's nonsense, but he is still a magnetic, compelling figure. And of course, Dylan is such a performer across the board, and like his whole public persona is this layers of performance. But then to see him turn up in this movie, it's almost like that doesn't work when you're the star of the movie. You need to exude some version of charisma. You can't be sullen and lurking at the edge of the frame when you're nominally the star of the film.
Well, is he the star of the film though, right? Or is this like did Richard Marquand, or if that's how you say his name, did the director think that honestly this was going to be like a vehicle for Fiona, and that Dylan was the way we sold it on the poster, but the main character, it's Fiona's journey, right? Even though she's very passive throughout the entire screenplay. I mean, screenplay written by a guy who never wrote again, Scott Richardson, who ended up going to work for Peter Jackson later on in his career, and then Joe Esterhaus, the most successful Hollywood screenwriter of all, financially successful of all time, who wrote like, I mean, honestly, I'm a huge Joe Esterhaus fan, but like Flashdance, Basic Instinct, Sliver, Showgirls, Jade, all these erotic thrillers, which within the context of the creepiness of the Dylan Fiona relationship, it was like, I was like, oh, I totally understand the Esterhaus contributions to the screen.
I mean, once again, cocaine, a mound the size of the Transamerica building, you know?
And yet a movie with no energy or zest to it whatsoever.
Oh, no.
Directed by the guy who did Return of the Jedi, as we talked about before.
Another director who never made a movie again after this one, although in this case it's because he died before it came out. I
saw that on the wiki, there was this like, people referred to this as the movie that killed Richard Marquand.
It wasn't worth it, Dick.
To sidebar, so we don't have to talk about Bob Dylan for a second. What are your takes on these 4 Beatles movies in 2028 that are all going to come out and movie stars and stuff like that?
Oh, they're going to be horrible.
I don't see any way they can be good, especially given that they're like the Avengers Endgame of the current Rockstar sanctioned vanity empty biopic industrial complex that keeps churning out these like honestly, I haven't seen any of them, so I guess maybe they're all great, but they seem to me to be like pointless, empty, hollow exercises in myth making. And Paul McCartney is out there working his ass off myth making himself in a series of like wonderful documentaries, new and old, most available on Disney Plus streaming platform. The idea of Paul Mescal, like, what is there to say about the Beatles and the Cavern Club that hasn't already been said by the Beatles themselves? That's my take on it.
I just can't wait for the Ringo movie. A whole movie about it's fascinating.
Maybe it's going to be a hardcore erotic, deeper investigation of his relationship with Barbara Bach.
Right.
That it's that they meet on the set of a Playboy shoot, and then it's just like 9.5 weeks where it's just them making love, like scene after scene of sex scenes in different hotels.
That would be, because there's no idea. These movies are like, what if we got Sam Mendes to put a wig on these 4 like attractive young actors and film them at the Cavern Club, walking across Abbey Road? Like it's the most boring possible take on the Beatles story. Make a movie about all of them in the late 70s, like miserable and alone or something. Do something real.
Well, maybe, I mean, did they announce that the movies would have a finite timeline?
That's true. No, they released like 2 pictures, and from that I've made a number of jumps to a number of hasty conclusions.
I would love to see a whole 30 minutes on George Harrison versus Phil Spector.
Well, when these movies come out, I would like to force you to come back on here so we can do one podcast per movie of this. Like, just do, or maybe we can watch them all 4. But I'm gonna force you to go see them in the theater with me here so we can do this. Like,
well, I mean, just off the top, I mean, it's 3 years away because by the time they hit streaming home video, it's 2029, right?
Yeah,
and I guess we can throw down the gauntlet and say with confidence, okay, we'll take all 4 movies and make one movie out of them and see what happens.
Oh, I love that. I love that, the idea of reducing that into, well, it's funny to get back to Dylan and his wraith-like presence in this thing, that the Nobel Prize line in it is particularly hilarious in that he is the owner of a Nobel Prize now, and that that is a thing that he like secreted for himself out of this movie. Like, do
you think the Nobel Committee considered the 1987 film Hearts of Fire while they were choosing whether or not to convey this honor on Bob Dylan?
I sure as hell hope so. There's another amazing cut you made with the "I wrote that for you" line at the end, where he's like, it's just so abrupt. It is having gone through the experience of watching these incredible edits you made of this thing. I actually do like. I loved watching these 3 cut downs of these movies that you did. Like I was up last night late again, rewatching all of them, being like so excited to talk with you about this, and it does make me feel like this is a deep well of these movies, that there are so many bad music movies that we need to discuss.
Oh yeah.
Into the future, like, and that just these 4 Beatles movies that are coming there's a whole
Graffiti Bridge. Anyone?
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the 3rd Prince movie that he ended up also directing. Yeah.
Time makes fools of us all.
This is very true. The like, this one also has great weird cameos in it, like Ian Dury and Richie Havens and all these people that are in it that are.
Raise your hand if it was you learned through watching this that Richie Havens was like a 6'7" giant.
I didn't know that at all.
It was kind of like I recently saw Conan the Destroyer, which has Wilt Chamberlain, and even he's in most scenes that he's in, he's actually leaning down into the camera so that he can like be in the same frame as the normal height people. And Richie Havens was also leaning down to get into the frame a lot of the time.
It really strikes me that this one, you say it's very Star is Born, but it's also very like 80s music video plot. And it really felt like it has about enough plot for like a 4-minute music video. You could really, you could get through like an even more drastic edit if you just redid it and we're like, it's the new Bob Dylan song. He mentors this girl creepily in a van, and there's a new wave loser, and they go to London from Toronto. That would do it on MTV.
I love the suicide spoiler alert for anyone. The suicide moment that with the woman with the mirrored glasses is. I mean, it's funny that like this one also like the new wave stuff that's happening because it is so late. It's like after new wave. Like new wave was over by this time. Especially because Fiona went on to be like a hair metal kind of person right up until. For the next 2 years until hair metal was destroyed by grunge. But like I think she worked with like Kip Winger and like the guys in Warrant and stuff like that. That was her bread and butter, I think.
I watched this whole movie. I cut down this whole movie. I don't have a clue who Fiona is. She was such a non-presence. Was this movie reverse engineered to be for her? And then Bob Dylan is also managed by the same person. And then they merged it.
Probably.
It becomes a Bob Dylan movie. Was this Bob Dylan's manager's fever dream to like get the guy back on top again? And he clearly was resenting the idea, so that is why he's not present in his own movie.
You know what? I should have written this down because I was reading the Wikipedia page for this movie, and I think there was actually another actor that was another musician that was gonna do the Bob Dylan role, and then when they dropped out, Bob did it instead. Let me just pull up the Wikipedia page here. Feel free to vamp, or we'll just let Josh chop this out. Hearts of Fire. This is how the sausage gets made.
I do kind of miss the time in which we didn't know anything about anything and just watched the movie and formed our own opinions, and then like talked about movies with friends and then moved on with our life.
100% yes. I think about it all the time. I have essentially stopped watching trailers. I've essentially stopped. I cannot help myself when I'm at home from just second screening the entire time, reading about whatever I'm watching. Yeah. I just watched this Jason Statham movie that was recommended to me by a friend for research purposes. Jason Statham movie called Homefront that has like an incredible cast. It's like James Franco, Winona Ryder, Kate Bosworth. It's one of these, Walking Tall style, like a guy moves out into the country and then runs afoul of the like rednecks that are surrounding him, and was also like peak post Katrina New Orleans tax credit. Every movie is set in the bayou, and it's like the entire time. The movie is, the first two acts are pretty good. The third act is a mess, but I just could not stop myself from, wiki deep dives and, really sort of recognize that. And at a certain point got up and put my phone like in the hallway away from me. So I couldn't.
I must withdraw what I just said. I either dreamed that or read it about something else and got confused. It seems like there were no other actors considered for the role of Billy Parker, I think is the name of the Bob Dylan alike in the film.
Parker. She keeps going, Fiona keeps going, Parker.
I am not a Dylan fan. So.
Ooh, why?
This sounds weird. His voice sounds weird to me. There's some stuff I like. In my CD collection here off camera, I have, I think, 2 Bob Dylan CDs, Blood on the Tracks and one other one. They're cool, but I never grew up as a Dylan fan. And I'm assuming the two of you did. So what do you think about his music in this movie in particular?
I think it's every time Rachel and I go on a road trip, we pick an artist and we listen to all of their studio albums in a row. We've been doing this for many years, and we just finished in February listening to all 40 studio albums by Bob Dylan. So I'm like, I was very in this from like, when is this stuff being developed and what is this like? How is he incorporating old material? And this era for him is a trench, like it is a creative trench, like it was for McCartney and like it was for Paul Simon. I think a lot of people see his Christian albums as some of the least accessible, because he made an earnest, like almost a half a decade's worth of Christian music. I mean, even recently he made a Christmas album that's like not ironic Christmas album. It is a like in the last 10 years, it's Christmas standards that he.
My wife will not let me play it. I'm not allowed to listen to Christmas in the Heart in our house if she's there. She made that decision in the first time I put on the first song.
A lot of this material ended up in different ways or forms, at least a couple of songs on Down in the Groove, which was a 1988 album. And then literally the next album, this is a 1989 record that he made with Daniel Lanois that like put him on the back into like the everyone's good graces. And, you know, this guy, he went through so many eras where he starts off as this kind of, you know, Woody Guthrie aping folk troubadour, and then with more surreal, psychedelic tinged lyrics, and then goes electric and makes all these blues rock records and stuff with the band that's kind of like down home stuff. And then he's got this Christian rock period. And then it's a series of kind of like meta statements moving forward. But there's really, really good material after this. Like he's right on the precipice of coming out of whatever was going on with him personally. And I'm sure it was drug and divorce and all the things that paint the other two movies that we watched too. I mean, like it's, but yeah, like this record Down the Groove is not one of my favorites.
On that note, I want to do a few quick like awards or superlatives or whatever. I'm going to ask you both. First of all, which of these three movies do you think had the most enjoyable music?
Oh, I mean, I guess One Trick Pony, because he's trying, you know, it's an actual record, you know, regardless of what you think of it, compared to his best stuff, it's still, you know, I would have no problem having that CD, I suppose. I cannot see myself casually listening to just the music of Broad Street. That seems a bridge too far. And Hearts of Fire, was it even in album form?
No. So it never had and a lot of the song, like that first song, like what's it called? The Usual is like, that's a John Hyatt cover. It was way more a patchwork of music by other artists and, you know, Tainted Love and all that, where it's like, it's funny. Brett, I will agree with you, except for I will say the music I enjoyed the most out of all three of these movies was the other bands in One Trick Pony. I like the B-52s. I like Glove and Spoonful. I liked all the other people that were like Tiny Tim practicing in the hallway. That was like the stuff that I enjoyed the most musically of all three of these. What was yours, Graham?
Honestly, that performance of The Usual, in every other way, I thought Hearts of Fire was the most like intolerable, painful watching experience. But that, I just thought it was like a good performance of a song that Dylan always seems to come to life, both musically and critically, when he's like looking at other people's music rather than his own. He's much more, if you ever read an interview with him and they're trying to get him to talk about his songs, he just will not open up. But if you ask him about, like, he has this amazing long thing about Leonard Cohen and how Leonard Cohen was a great melody writer and is underrated for it. And it's just like lucid, coherent, incredibly thoughtful and smart, like very smart music criticism. And so similarly, when he gets up on stage and plays this song, to my ears, he was just playing a song that he respected. And it's like a good performance by a tight band. And I was happy to see it.
That song, is that them trying to replicate Dylan's sound at the time, or is that trying to replicate 80s country and western at the time?
I think it's them it's instead of him getting up on stage and playing Like a Rolling Stone, it is him getting up on stage playing an undeniably good song by another artist in the style of Dylan from the like probably his most lucrative period, which was the mid 70s.
Oh, I see.
I mean,
okay.
And so it's like it's referencing him as a as a big cultural influence and post Newport post it's him as like sort of king of American music at the time, pre-punk, right before punk, right before. I mean, he was. It's very interesting to me. You don't have a great relationship with him, Brett, because I think there's a lot. I just did this with Graham for our Charlie XCX record, but like, if I made you a series of Dylan mixes, would you listen to them if I burn them on CD for you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's really just when I grew up, I just didn't respond to it. So now I understand it a little bit more. I would probably like the 70s stuff more than anything else.
His last record, I thought, was really, not last record, but 2 records ago, the one he's still been touring on really is, because the last record was, I think, a soundtrack to a movie about him. Mm-hmm. But
this is Rough and Rowdy Ways, I think you're referring to, the one with the
Rough and Rowdy Ways, 2 records ago. Yeah, it's like amazing. It's unhinged. There's a song about the Kennedy assassination that I think is 18 minutes long,
and it has 2. The whole time in one ear, Fiona Apple is like jamming on the piano, and in the other ear, someone else is jamming on the piano, and they just kept both in. It's amazing.
It's just really like bizarre and beautiful. But the first half of the record has like some legitimate jams on it. I feel like I could separate at least the wheat from the chaff, and give you like a pathway into for Dylan to use his wraith-like claws to cut into your heart, and
he's one step away from being the Louis Gossett Jr. character from Enemy Mine. He looks terrible, terrible in this movie.
Next question. Which of these 3 musicians, A, gave the best performance, B, would you have been most interested if they had chosen from the point of these movies onward to pursue more rigorously a career acting, whether as a lead or, as Dylan has done, like a bit of a character actor? I know they've all appeared in various things in various ways, but if we imagine a sort of more like, and then they spent like the mid-90s just showing up in movies. Like one of these guys is like in the boardroom in Enemy of the State, chopping it up with John Voight.
Yeah. And it's an interesting question in light of some of the other boomer rats having had an indie film presence. Bowie is in Basquiat and some other stuff. Like this is one terrible movie he's in with Rosanna Arquette called The Linguini Incident from 1990, in his Tin Machine era. There's also Mick Jagger for a while was dabbling in like serious movies. He's in some World War II spy thriller that he also produced. And he's in Bent, I think, for a minute. George Harrison also was a great film producer through Handmade Films, and is the reason why I think Holy Grail and Life of Brian got funded in some way, and then also With Nail and I and a lot of other British movies.
Yeah. I grew up watching Ringo as the little conductor on Shining Time Station. Right. That's before I knew about the Beatles. I knew about Mr. Conductor and little Ringo Starr, and later little George Carlin.
That's funny. I guess Paul Simon. I think he had the greatest shot of showing up in a John Sayles movie. It's like the company store owner in Matewan or something like that. Dylan is just too much of an intractable lizard. He's always going to be that. And then McCartney would just be bored. I think Paul Simon would have the actual follow through to be in movies. Maybe even if he had chosen an alternate career path, he would have been in like Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, totally. I could definitely see him doing a series of comedies in the 80s that were, like you said, like moving towards, in the late 90s, like a Drive style, like where he plays all of a sudden like a gangster but yeah, he could have played
James L. Brooks. He would have been in a James L. Brooks movie.
Totally, yes. And a James L. Brooks movie for sure. I don't, I gotta be honest, like, I I think all of them are too distracting to take seriously as actors. It's funny when you brought up Bowie, because Bowie to me also like chose his roles better. Like The Man Who Fell to Earth, and he was always playing a weird character. Like he's playing Warhol in that Basquiat movie where he's like, okay, like I kind of get that. Like those two guys were like guys who were used to artifice and doing a thing, and so like it makes sense.
Yeah, he plays like Nikola Tesla in The Prestige, and this is the guy in the movie who's supposed to be like a magician. And so when you go to, obviously David Bowie's not going to disappear into a role. His eyes are different colors, and so, but you just got to lean into that and use, which is kind of what I was saying about Paul Simon in One Trick Pony, where it seems like the most correctly keyed to the the vibe that the performer gives off, which is asshole. Yeah, in that case, him and his buddy Chevy Chase could have made a movie together as like two jerks on a road trip.
Yeah, also famously a bad guy, right? Yeah. Like I'm so glad that we went through this. I'm so glad, Brett, that you cut these together. Like you've done a great service for humanity. I think people will look back at these edits and be like, I was able to consume the core information of this and have a couple great laughs and a couple like chilling cringe moments, and then escape with 45 more minutes of their lives. And it's like, it's a great service you've done. Yeah.
Well, that's my final question, ties into exactly what you just said, which, because these movies, like the pomposity and the banality of them is so upfront and repellent. And it's repellent in ways that's reminiscent of ways that all the worst parts of that, like boomer rock and roll, this music and this culture that I love and adore and that's so influential, or maybe too influential, but also is shot through with this weird, it's simultaneously so full of itself and so like utterly boring in so many ways. So I wondered if we could try plotting these three movies out on the spectrum between pomposity and banality. Which one best typifies pomposity, which one banality, and which one sort of falls between?
Pomposity, give my regards to Broad Street. Banality, Hearts of Fire. And again, One Trick Pony is attempting to be a real movie.
That's exactly right.
Doesn't get there.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
What is left to say about the great works, about the foot in the desert that is 1960s born American culture? Do we need, as a species, as a society, to jettison all boomer-made content, throw all the babies out with all the bathwater if we have a hope of moving forward culturally and existentially?
Oh, we're trapped in the 90s forever. Like the 90s, the Nirvana t-shirt will erase all of this stuff. Like it's because it's the last gasp of the like whatever monoculture or pre-internet or whatever. Like we're just going to be the impact that all the art from the 90s has is going to echo out over the rest of our lives and have much larger cultural reach than the boomer stuff, I think, eventually.
I keep seeing clickbaity news articles about this band Geese, which I have not heard before. And I'm like, there's such a furor around this. What do they sound like? And then one article says they sound like the Strokes. And I went, oh, okay.
They do not sound like the Strokes.
They don't. Okay.
They do not. And I would say all three Geese records are better than Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
There you have it, folks.
Come out.
Independent thinkers exist in every podcast medium, not just the political kind. Is there any stone left unturned on these movies before we devolve completely into
well, I suppose we should say that they're all these edits that we've talked about are airing on Museum of Home Video on Tuesday, May 19th.
Okay.
And
I'll say that up front too, so if people stop listening, they'll have the information already.
Also, we should say that there is hot new merch from the good people at the Museum of Home Video. Check out this Bret Berg Black Flag hat that I have that I've been wearing very proudly out in the world. And people are like, what's that hat? And I was like, it is about a kind of core fandom that you got to get on board and learn a little bit more about. As you once referred to And by the way, I'm not sure if we properly thank you for Lisa Fancher coming on to this show, but you introduced me to Lisa, and Lisa was kind enough to come on this show. But you referred to her as a culture warrior in the highest praise. I could see the glow in your eyes of how much you admired her contribution to the world. I feel the same way about you. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, we have a traditional last question that, Graham, I'm sorry.
Well, I was trying to think because we asked it last time about what you eat while you edit. This was 3 movies you had to watch and then edit. And well, maybe in the finest tradition of 80s cocaine-fueled creation, maybe there was no eating going on.
How much cocaine?
How much cocaine did you snort?
0 coke, but a lot of weed. I mean, it's not that I need weed to edit. It just unlocks a bonus level in my mind to make connections and to say it's okay if you cut that lyric off in the middle of the line because it's a funnier joke than just leaving it in. Someone may not hear how bad the line sounds if you leave the whole thing in, but when you call attention to it, when you cut from a line in the middle of a song to some other shot and the shot is quiet, it makes you consider the thing you just heard a little bit harder. And yeah, weed makes these kinds of joke edits funner to make.
So you're eating weed.
Yeah, right. Stack of edibles.
Like Josh Brolin at the end of Inherent Vice.
Also, I do want to make a plea for people to buy more used CDs because here the podcast listener won't be able to see that I've got Blood on the Tracks and the
first B-52
self-titled.
$4.99. What a bargain for a whole CD.
I'm going to say that
$4.
That B-52's album is better than Blood on the Tracks, but that also is another podcast we can have. I can't thank you enough for doing this. Please come back and do this with us forever and more. And thank you for all your hard work making Museum of Fun Video what it is. It's such a rad thing, and I feel very fortunate to be able to even consume it, much less know you. So it's very...
So
it's awesome.
Museum of Home Video is a weekly live stream on Tuesday nights, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you go to museumofhomevideo.com, we do this, the kind of thing you'll see if you watch these cut downs on May 19th. We do it every week. We do a variety show of found footage, old talk show clips, old game show clips, old commercials. I'll take a movie and I'll cut it down to like 10 minutes. I'll throw in some current content creator stuff because that stuff's funny to me too. And it's all presented kind of like MTV, where I come on every 30 minutes and I say, oh, you just saw that. Now you're going to see this. And it's fun and it's free unless you join the Patreon, which is money.
Just for my own curiosity, Bret, it's all very interesting to me, the coming together and the recontextualizing of like all this cultural ephemera and detritus or whatever. Do you feel like you've been like developing an articulatable outlook or like unified theory on like what all of this, because there's such a gigantic metaphorical Pacific Ocean garbage patch of like media culture created by humans in the last 100 years or 50 years or how even just as far back as you're drawing on, and slicing it up and sticking it all in together has very powerful in a way that I can't quite articulate it. I'm curious how, as time has gone by and maybe as bowls have been cashed, what if any sort of dawning epiphanies you felt knocking on your psyche?
Well, first, I don't like using the phrase deep dive because I don't think there's a way to get to the bottom. But my thesis is the history of showbiz, and that means considering all of recorded human history, basically. And I'm only able to skip a stone across that ocean. It's never going to get lower than like 2 or 3 layers, and the bottom is like 40 layers deep, just because it's the randomness of what I can find on YouTube, archive.org, on torrent sites, what people trade me for. I don't know, that I think life is best lived skipping that stone, and you can appreciate the pattern the stone makes rather than obsessing about getting to the bottom of things. So this show has definitely taught me that you just live your life and try to have fun. I am a child raised by cable television, babysat by cable television. I had a single mom who just said, stay right there, watch this thing, don't move. And I don't know, I learned a lot about comedy, about art, about movies. And what you see on the show is just kind of the tone of what's in my head when thinking about old TV.
Is there like a white whale piece of content that you mentioned trading, which I imagine if you're trading, it's for stuff that's otherwise unavailable, which is, there's so much available now. There's the idea of otherwise, like hard to access media is such a crazy concept now. But you would know better than just about anyone how much is out there. And I'm curious if there's like one thing you've been seeking.
I rarely do the seeking thing. I like to do the tune-a-net approach or the random Brian Eno, I Ching approach where you just throw the runes and whatever happens, and you just deal with it creatively. But there's one video, I've tried so many avenues to get a better upgrade of this one Factory Records music video compilation. And it has this one Crispy Ambulance video on it that's so good, but every time I've downloaded it or try to rip it from whatever source, it looks like shit or it sounds like shit. And I know it's a little better. It could be a little better. I'm always looking for that one Crispy Ambulance video. But otherwise, I just, whatever comes to me, and I just deal with it based upon what sounds like the most fun to cut at that moment. And that ends up being the frenzied back and forth ping pong match of my show.
So do you have like a cool rig somewhere just off camera of like VHS players and like beta players plugged into computers so that you can digitize shit?
No, I don't even have my TV hooked up. It's just sitting in the corner, not hooked up.
Bravo.
This is entirely hard drive download.
Cool.
Collector based. And if I had to transfer tapes in order to create my show every week, it would be once a month and not every week.
Right.
Or longer. It'd be like once a quarter or some shit. That's such a slowing down of my process. And I'd rather take advantage of the fantabulous armchair archivist work that all the random people on YouTube and archive.org and torrent sites like MySpleen, if you know, you know. I'd rather take advantage of all the labor that they've already done, and it can make my process move 10, 20 times faster.
Wonderful. Thank you for assuaging my curiosity.
Yeah. It's the kind of show that I've always wanted to do, but it took the COVID lockdown era for me to really formulate exactly how it would feel and what it meant to deliver it to people weekly. And yeah, I love it when people can take something out of my art therapy, because that's what it is. I sit here and rather than ruminate on, I do that anyway, ruminate on the state of the world, I'll cut a movie down and make a funny joke.
I mean, that is not that also a way to ruminate on the state of the world?
Yes.
In a different language?
Yes.
That's how I felt watching these ultimately, is that I was receiving some information on a frequency that I hadn't previously tuned into. And I don't know how I felt about a lot of the information I was getting, but I was glad to get it. And I was just, like I said at the top, I thought I'm sure all three of these guys would be thrilled to have these products, disappear entirely from the universe. They have not been canonized. They don't seem, and in a moment when like every piece of Beatles anything is being remastered and widely released. Give my regards to Broad Street, I don't think is on the menu. And so it was like exciting, even though it stunk, to watch a Paul McCartney thing that wasn't curated for me by Paul McCartney himself right now, using like, the current commercial landscape and like working on with the shit that's just out there. It's like, this is antiquated, and it has it's out of context. It has a whole different energy to it. And it's really exciting to see a familiar face in such an unfamiliar context.
This is awesome. Sincerely, I can't wait till we do this again. You are the second return guest on Major Label Debut behind Colin Newman and Malcolm Spiegel. And I hope, again, like I said, you come back to over and over and over and over again. This is so much fun to do this.
Whew. Well, there you go.
love all three of the musicians we talked about today. I love their records. They've all changed my life and my, rewired my brain in their own way, as they have for literally millions and millions of people the world over. And we live in an age, or we live in a moment, I guess I should say, where these icons of our culture are really treated, or at least seem to wish to present themselves as sort of infallible golden gods. They're sort of perfectly market adjusted after, at this point, 5-6 decades in the spotlight. Other than Bob Dylan, who, God bless his soul, is still out there on the road playing his songs however the spirit moves him to do so. But generally speaking, I don't know that our general, broadly construed societal relationship with these figures has a lot of room for the weirder and uglier corners of their oeuvres. And so it was really a pleasure today to get to shine a spotlight in those corners and see the sort of, the cockroaches of disrepute skitter away, but not in time to avoid being seen altogether. I don't know that I'll ever be returning to these films. I don't know that I'll be seeking them out and watching them in their original form. But I'm so grateful to Bret for spending the time sort of inside them to bring us these edits, and for how he showed the movies and the actors / musicians to us and to you as well. These movie episodes are very quickly going perfectly off the rails, and I anticipate many more freewheeling and maniacal conversations still to come in the future. Museumofhomevideo.com is where you can find all of Bret Berg's amazing work, not just his Fasterpiece Theater, but everything he does there, which is, you should listen to our first episode with him to get the full download on what he does over there, or just go to the website and immerse yourself in it, because nothing can explain the content of the Museum of Home Video as well as simply the content can. It truly is its own language, and it rings its bell very clearly. So it was great to have Bret back on the show, and I hope you'll tune in tomorrow night. That's May 19th, 2026 at museumofhomevideo.com in order to watch these movies, these edits, these wonderful messages from another time right along with us. Thanks for listening to The Talk. Always fun to talk about something that you can't watch as opposed to something that you can't listen to. This is the curse of podcasting about other media, but it's also the blessing of it, and it's what we're all here to enjoy. That's the show. It's produced, as always, by John Paul Bullock, who also joined us on this episode on the mic, Josh Hook, the one and only. Our theme music is by Greg Alsop. You can find us online in all the places where you can find anyone online, and please continue to find us and direct your friends to find us as well. Thanks so much for listening. Major Label Debut will return with more tales, news, and occasionally motion pictures from the intersection of art and commerce. See ya.